person to answer our questions than our first guest, Carol Bell, who's the Executive Director of the whole gigantic undertaking. So, Carol, how did it all start? Tell us about the exhibition. What was the sort of driving vision behind it?
Well, the driving vision behind it was basically the government decided to launch a competition, and they wanted somewhere in the north of England to showcase all that was great from the north in terms across the themes of art, design and culture. We saw that and thought we couldn't think of a better place than Newcastle Gateshead.
Right. So who's we in this case? I mean, who's
we?
Who takes this decision? Who has the power to make this come to us?
It's a very good point. I think often when there are competitions that happen, lots of people decide to bid for it. So often, if you're in a region, you might get different parts of the region competing. And what we did initially when this idea came around, we brought a lot of stakeholders together from different organisations across the northeast and talked about, if we were to bid for to host the Great Exhibition, where would be the place? Who would, where would be the best location? And from that stakeholder group, it was agreed that Newcastle Gateshead would be the best place to host the exhibition. And the organisation I work for, Newcastle Gateshead Initiative, we're often involved in bidding for events or attracting events, very much working in partnership with others. So we talked to the councils, and they said that we should put forward a bid, and it should be us that led it in terms of starting the writing and thinking about it. And it ended up that it was me that ended up leading on that and writing the bid.
Excellent, fantastic. And not wishing to sort of embarrass you, but you did win against some pretty stiff competition, because I gather there was, not alone did you see off Halifax, Harrogate, St Helens, Whitehaven and Scunthorpe, but you were shortlisted then against Sheffield, Blackpool and Bradford, and you emerged victorious.
Yes, and I mean, it wasn't just down to me, and I think the approach that we took, in the same way as we did through the initial consultation, talking to others, it was very much a partnership approach. Right. So our core partners were initially Tannyware Archives and Museum. So Ian Watson, who's the director there, I worked very closely with him on the bid, and also other partners like the universities, Baltic, Sage, Gateshead, to develop the concept and the idea.
How much time did you have?
Not a lot, not long enough. And it was interesting. I think the competition was launched in April 2016, and then I think the bid had to be in by I think it was either late June or early July.
Gosh.
So there was no time at all. And if you think about how long it takes to do that sort of consultation with partners and make sure that everybody's backing the bid, I think we ended up with about 6 weeks to come up with the concept and write it.
Gosh.
So that was all a bit crazy. But the DCMS, who were the government lead, the government department that led it, had set out some quite clear criteria that we all had to answer. So there was a list of questions.
Right.
But what we had to do was really sort of think about what we were going to do with the Great Exhibition, and that was the biggest challenge, because we knew there was a prize of £5 million on the table, but you can't do a lot with that if you think about the old Great Exhibitions of 1851. You can't build a big Crystal Palace, or even the North East Coast Exhibition, which was in Exhibition Park in 1929. They built large structures, and doing the design and doing everything within the timescales was impossible. So the concept came up, and I think I was sat in Ian's office one day, and we were going, how are we going to make this work? How can we make it work? And I sort of said, well, we've got the assets here, we've got brilliant buildings, lovely facilities, and we have a walk ride map. So I started to draw on that and said, well, the Great North Museum, we could have that as a hub, and then have trails leading down to the quayside. And it was almost that the topography of Newcastle and Gateshead was written for us, because we had the Great North Museum, and we, rather than a culture trail, we thought, well, actually, what the Great Exhibition provides Newcastle Gateshead in the North East with the opportunity of is actually pushing the whole cultural regeneration argument further and really starting to link with industry and developing strengths and innovation, and really sort of start to bring some really interesting collaborations together. So that's why we came up with the innovation route, which goes out from the Great Northern Museum through Newcastle University, round Science Central, picking up places like the Littenfield and the Mining Institute, the arts route through the centre of the city down to the quayside, and the design route out to the east, picking up some amazing artist studio spaces, and then back along the quayside.
I'm not entirely surprised that Sir Gary Verity, who was the chair of the judging panel, described your proposals as exciting and innovative, and he also described them as ambitious. So all of that certainly sounds very true. So what we're going to do now is, as you know, at this point, you choose a piece of music.
Right. Well, there's probably lots I think about it, but I think one of my favourite songs, and I often sing it when I'm walking down the street to my home because I often hear them, is Blackbird by the Beatles, because I think it's just a lovely song.